Hi everybody, and welcome to DnD Horror Stories with DnD Doge. In today's video, we have a story about a D&D player demanding another player get kicked, or else. A story about a dungeon master that thinks it's a great idea to make the players illiterate mid-campaign, and much more. But before we get into those, if you like what I do here, I hope you consider critting that like button, as it really does help the channel out. If not for me, then how about for Simba establishing dominance? How could you not drop a like for that? But with that said, let's get into some D&D horror stories. Healer accuses Necromancer of abuse, then threatens to leave the game. By Reddit user CornEnjoyer12. Before I get into things, some background is needed. I just started a new campaign not too long ago, feeling good about the players I've selected. 2 are friends that I've played with before, several times, and 2 are new. Also important to note, this game is being played entirely online. Anyway, the 4 players are Sorcerer, who is one of my friends in real life, Necromancer, who is new to my games, Healer, who I've played one-shots with before, Pugilist, who is also new to my games. After I had gathered the players, we all assembled for Session 0. We all had a fun time. I outlined the lore and homebrew I'd be using. Everyone got along well, and all was good. Fast forward to a day before Session 1, and there's a small dispute between Healer and Necromancer. The players had been talking about their classes and such, and Healer made a comment about how she felt useless because other players had buffs. The way it was written came across as a joke, which is what the intention was. Necromancer responded by saying some of the ways druids could get in DPS and other forms of utility, and Healer gets mad. Eventually, they work it out, and I don't need to get involved. And we start Session 1 in good faith. That seems like a silly thing to get upset over, but let's continue. As Session 1 begins, I go through the introductions. Each player gets a chance to show off their character's personalities, and things continue without any problems. At the end of the session, I ask if they would like a short rest, to which the group agrees, why not? The day after is when trouble begins. Pugilist asks in chat why exactly we took a short rest, because they didn't exactly expend a lot of resources. Necromancer links a webpage that lists some of the things you can do, and says things like training, hit dice, etc. Healer then enters the conversation and makes a comment about how it's not really worth it because training takes forever. Necromancer says that they were only linking possible options, and that most were for flavor, not rules as written. Healer then says, "Just making a friendly remark. Guess I'm not allowed to talk now." Okay. What? Necromancer replies with, "That's not what I said, but if you have an issue, we can handle it in character. I'm just gonna remove myself from the situation." After this, Healer begins to direct message me, saying that what Necromancer said hurt their feelings. I said that I'd talk to them about it, and shortly afterward, Healer messaged me again, saying they abused them and triggered their PTSD, and Necromancer is making them feel unsafe. Now, I realize that Necromancer could have handled that little event better, but Healer claiming that it made them feel unsafe and causing them PTSD? I'd say that is a bit of an overreaction. I continue to say that I will discuss it with Necromancer, but they begin to adamantly request that Necromancer needs to be kicked from the game because of what they said. Note, this entire time, they have not cited any private messages between the 2, nor even mentioned that anything happened in direct messages between them. So I ask Necromancer about it. They explain their side, and I end up agreeing that Healer is overreacting. By the time I look at my direct messages with Healer, they have begun a rant about how everyone is discriminating against them for their autism, that this is abuse and bullying, that they are going to OD on alcohol if nothing is done. By this time, I have already decided that I would not be kicking Necromancer. And when Healer learns this, they completely lose it, going off that I am discriminating, that I must hate them because I won't do what they want, etc. Eventually, they leave the server before I have a chance to even talk to them. They leave with a message saying that they will probably OD because of the rampant abuse from Necromancer. I feel kind of responsible for what happened, even though Healer was definitely overreacting. So, do you think I could have stopped this in any way? Or was Healer at fault here? At this point, I'm not entirely sure, but I hope they end up okay. No, OP is not at fault here in any way. And yes, Healer was way overreacting to such a little misunderstanding. For Healer to demand that OP kick out Necromancer for that little argument, if you could even call it that, is just outrageous. Then to say that OP was discriminating against them because OP wouldn't kick Necromancer, and then threaten to OD on alcohol, just shows that Healer would not be a good fit for the game, because any little thing that wouldn't go his way would probably get the same reaction. I'd say that it's good that Healer showed their true colors that early in the campaign. That way, OP and the rest of the group wouldn't have to deal with stuff like that deeper into the game. And I wouldn't worry about Healer ODing on alcohol, as I am pretty sure that that was just an empty threat made in order to make OP and Necromancer feel bad. Hopefully, OP and the group are able to find another player, or just go on with the game with one player short. Though, I would like to hear your thoughts from this story, so be sure to post them in the comments. On to the next one. All of our player characters are illiterate, and the Dungeon Master didn't tell us. By Reddit user, Miss Bug Lover. Pretty much what the title says. I've known about this for 2-ish months, but the other players are just finding out. We're 7 months into Curse of Strahd, and about halfway through the campaign. None of our player characters can read, and it's been a debate between 2 of us players in particular, and the DM. The DM's argument is that generalized reading is a modern practice, and up until 150 years ago, only nobility could read, or only people who went to college or university could read. And since our characters are all lower class or lack formal education, we're all illiterate. Literally. We can't read. None of us. Up until very recently, my now dead character, a wizard, had been doing most, if not all of the reading. It's a part of her backstory that she's had a formal education. And most of the NPCs we've been hanging around are nobles who can afford an education and therefore can read. This is how we didn't notice. Now, my wizard is dead, and none of us can read. It's making certain parts of playing the game really difficult, because we have to go through the NPCs to read anything, and I mean anything. Part of the reason it's so weird is because we didn't know this until this past month, outside of me and the DM. 2 apparently, of the player characters are genuinely unable to read as a meme, and I wonder if the DM got the idea because of this. He has confirmed that he didn't have this idea at the start during character creation, that it developed as he worked on the world building about 4 months ago. My problem is that this greatly affects gameplay. The other player who has a problem with it doesn't like that there are a specific checklist of options that a character has to meet to know how to read, with no leniency. And she thinks that is unfair and unrealistic, and that her character should know how to read. I can't speak on this, as I don't know her full backstory. Both of us players agree that something like this should have been mentioned during character creation, and otherwise is unenforceable. The DM has said that he doesn't want to fight over this, and can revoke the idea if it's this big of a deal. I feel like it's a weird battle for us to pick on both sides, so I'm unsure, just in general. It definitely bothers me less than it does the other players. Thoughts? While that certainly is an interesting idea to put into the game, to do so while already playing the game and after character creation is kind of BS. I mean, you do pick what languages that your character can speak and presumably read during character creation, and it's part of what makes a character unique. Like, if you run into a book written in Elvish, and your character is the only one that can read it. That, and the history argument doesn't make much sense, as this is a fantasy world with all sorts of languages and magic and stuff. I think it is fair for some of the players to be a bit miffed at this revelation that the DM just threw at them out of nowhere. And if I were part of the game, I would vote for that to be thrown out. Though, what are your thoughts on this one? On to the next post. Surprise Pregnancy by DM Without Asking by Reddit user Gloomy Cat. So, I'm a beginner player and female, and this happened in one of the campaigns I recently joined to start getting more into D&D. Summarizing, the Dungeon Master first told me that my character was gonna have a dream, and asked me if I could, quote, follow the flirt with the NPC who was going to appear there, because it was a thing for the plot. I said, sure, no problem. Later in the session, it was not just a flirt. He basically narrated how the NPC took my character to bed, started undressing her, and then did a fade to black with obvious implications. At this point, I was uncomfortable, but I said nothing. My bad there. And just joked in character about it when she woke up with real marks on her neck. Also narrated by the DM. It was also kind of implied that my character was charmed, or under some weird effect, because he said, I was suddenly very attracted to the stranger. And, well, there was no other logical reason for my character to F with the random dude who appeared in her dream. Well, the next session ends with another NPC whispering to my character, but you are not alone, which kind of made me suspect, but I was stupid and just thought, nah, no way, who would do that? Well, he would. Now, this last session ended with the big bad boy, the main villain, taking my character's hand and moving it to her belly so she could feel a heartbeat she knew wasn't hers. That's literally the suspenseful moment he ended the session with. I know that I should have spoken up as soon as I suspected it, and it's kind of my fault that I didn't stop him in time. But holy crap, he never asked me about this. I would have not accepted this, as I am really uncomfortable with pregnancy topics involving me or any of my characters. Am I being too dramatic or exaggerating if I want to just leave and block the guy? I feel kinda sad because the other players are nice and fun to play with, but I really hate conflict and feel like I'm the bad one for abandoning the campaign. But I'm extremely uncomfortable with this DM right now. It's a Curse of Strahd campaign, and the Dream Dude was Strahd in disguise. And, well, he wants an heir, so you're pregnant now. So the DM made this a main plot thing. Well, that was a bit presumptuous of the DM to take OP's acceptance of, quote, flirting as the okay and go-ahead to make their character pregnant for plot reasons. I'd say that if this event and this DM really do make you feel uncomfortable, then it may be a good thing to try and find a different table. But if you really do like the campaign as a whole and the other players, I would say that it may be worth talking to the DM about it and tell them that the whole pregnancy thing makes you extremely uncomfortable. And who knows, he might listen to you and retcon the whole thing. I honestly don't understand why DMs making players' characters pregnant is a thing, as it seems to be a theme in a lot of these stories. But what would you all suggest OP do in this situation? On to the next post. Was I wrong for trusting my DM? By Reddit user WinterNotice3314. So I was in a game last year where my original character died partway through, and I decided to make a new character. At this point, I had only played martial classes and wanted to play a character with magic, but not get overwhelmed. We were level 15 at this point. Eventually, he suggested that I play a paladin, but I didn't want to play the typical good guy paladin, so we made him an oathbreaker in the service of Bane. The dungeon master's girlfriend was playing a cleric, and my god was in direct conflict with her goddess. We decided that we would have my character be sent by Bane to steal an artifact of his girlfriend's goddess that she had found a few months before. He told me he would talk to her and get her go-ahead on the character, because our characters would be antagonistic to each other. Anyway, after 4 months of playing this character, I finally found out where her character was hiding the artifact that I was sent to steal. So, the next session, I steal it during a combat and fled to magically send it to Bane. Then, we had a party of 5 fighting my character, and I was actually able to kill one of the other characters, which I didn't expect. The session ended after the cleric revivified the player character I killed. Then, she started losing it at me because of what happened. I come to find out that the DM never talked to her about my character and what he was going to do. Now, because of this, not only was I kicked from the table, but the DM who I was friends with for 20 years sends me a text that we aren't friends anymore. Wow, talk about effed up. Something tells me that the girlfriend had a hand in this decision. And instead of fessing up to her and saying that they were both planning this, the DM took the coward's way out by blaming it all on OP, and then cutting contact, which was probably also a stipulation from the DM's girlfriend. It would be pretty immature for a significant other to demand someone not be friends with a person anymore over a D&D game, and even more immature for said significant other to do so. Though something tells me that, in a few months or years, DM will contact OP again, ask for forgiveness, and want to be friends again. You know, after DM and his girlfriend inevitably break up. But still, to break off a friendship of that long, you gotta ask, were they even really a friend to begin with? Hopefully, OP can find another game to play in, and DM will see how silly it is to end a friendship over something so trivial. Let's move on. Was I too harsh with my Session 0 follow-up? By Reddit user Fiona11303. I was supposed to host my Session 0 yesterday. I was very clear about the time and reminded everyone a week before, a day before, 2 hours before, and 30 minutes before. Only 2 people showed up out of 6. No one said they couldn't make it until about 10 minutes before we started. One person joined for about a minute and then said, "Oh, I have to go," without any explanation. I sent this message to everyone as we play on Discord. I'm sorry, but I really need to put my DM hat on and address something. My biggest requirement as a DM is that we have open communication. I didn't put this in the rules, which is on me, but I will be adding it. I was very clear about the session time, and I do expect people to show up. I will always accommodate unforeseen circumstances. Real life comes before D&D, but I need you guys to talk to me. It's genuinely disheartening to prepare everything for a session, make plans, get excited, and then not have people show up. So I am asking that you please be honest with yourself, and if you can't commit to a weekly session, don't force it. It's okay if you can't. I won't be upset. No one has responded, and one player told me that another player, their friend, felt attacked. But showing up to Session 0 is the bare minimum. I don't want to offend or accuse anyone, but I feel like I'm justified in being upset. What do I do? Honestly, OP did the right thing here, and is fully justified by being upset that the players were so lax with the Session 0. OP laying out the rules for attendance after this happened and saying to only join if players can commit to the game isn't that big of an ask. And if one of the players felt offended or targeted by this, that is on them. So yeah, OP did absolutely nothing wrong here. And hopefully, they will be able to fill their game with players that aren't so flaky. On to the next post. Player confronts me during campaign over things I did not do, and not sure where to go from here. Submitted to the DnD Doge subreddit by Reddit user AniveS96. Hello, I've been watching the channel for a few months now, and it's been helpful as a moderately new player, especially with advice. But now, I need some of my own. I'm playing in an in-person group that consists of 6 players in a Saltmarsh campaign. The group consists of the DM, my partner, who plays a wizard, me, who plays a bard, and 4 strangers, though we have been playing the campaign for almost a year now. If it helps, the 4 players are a cleric, a barbarian, a druid, and an artificer, who is also the partner of the barbarian, and a DM himself. The artificer, I will admit, is not my favorite person to play with. They will discover items and hand them out without discussion, and generally lead the group, which I understand that they are a veteran player and DMs games of their own, so they would know more than us, but it does take away from the game sometimes. Sometimes he's a bit too murdery as well, attacking first, always, without good reason, but I never make it a problem, and essentially just let it go. They do not generally interact with my character, so I assumed there was no issue with each other. This last session, we were leveling up and just role-playing little storylines, when out of nowhere, the artificer confronted my bard, saying, "I am drawing a hard line with you. You always run away during battle. If you run again, I am no longer helping you." I was taken aback. For reference, I am still a relatively new player in comparison, but I have never ran from battle. While my bard doesn't excel in combat situations generally, I do healing, debuffs, cutting words, and attempt vicious mockery, though it's not always successful. I've even healed their character when downed from death. They also said the following: "You stayed on the boat during the fight and refused to help." There was an encounter where we had to climb up to a ship in the beginning. I attempted multiple times, but due to a DC of 15 and having a -1 in strength, I had a large amount of trouble, but I could not control the dice rolls. He then said, "We offered and tried to help you, and the wizard was downed like 5 times. They were in a battle and did not use an action to help me on the ship. When I finally aced the dice roll, I actually healed the wizard, who was downed only once. You ran away from combat during a boss fight." It was a fight against a crocodile. I actually used stealth to scope out the area first. I attempted to get the attention of the threats, and then I was attacked, and at 4 HP the entire fight, as I was literally next to the boss itself the entire fight. Again, maybe not as useful when it comes to damage, but I did save the barbarian from a critical roll and gave bardic inspirations. The artificer also said, "You constantly disrespect me by speaking for me and treating me as a construct." This one confused me. He never spoke about his character or background, and we don't know a lot about it. I will admit, I spoke for him once, in order to get him into a lizard people village, as he was outside because he refused to cover his scary steel defender. But once he said don't speak for me, I never have again. It is also confusing, as they shamed me before for not speaking up as the bard of the group, and about being the face of the party. But then when I do it, I was told not to? After it was over, I felt pretty embarrassed and just left without saying much. I went to discover more with the story. I didn't want to make enemies. I tried talking to the DM, who suggested I talk to the Artificer player to sort it out. I sent a message, but even as of now, no reply. I understand, with this group, because of schedules, things get lost and memories fade, as we can go weeks without playing. But it felt so unnecessary to call me out in the group for things I knew for sure I did not do. I always try to help, but even I have only so many spell slots and not a lot of strength. I wish they would have talked to me directly if they felt I was not doing enough. Am I being crazy? Should I just quit at this point, since they are threatening to have their character not help mine? Even though I have never needed help from them. TLDR. Player confronts me about running from battles in front of the group. I have never ran from battle, and I help out how I can. Where do I go from here? Well, first thing, your DM is right. You need to talk it out with Artificer to figure things out. And I realize that you have sent a message and haven't received anything back yet. But you did say that all of you can go a long time without playing due to schedules and such. And perhaps he just hasn't had a chance to get back to you yet. Part of me actually thinks that all of these confrontations may have just been roleplay and in character, in which case, it's part of the game. If this is the case, perhaps the Artificer player could have done a better job of indicating that it was in character, since you are a new player. Though, if it was not in character, I would lay out all the stuff that you did in this post to him. And maybe he'll realize that he may have been a bit too harsh on you. I wouldn't consider leaving the game, as it sounds like you really enjoy it, over something that can be fixed with some communication. But like I said, I really do think, by the way this post read, that Artificer was just role-playing, and probably wanted to do some inter-party conflict type stuff. So I say stick it out and talk it out. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I appreciate all of you, especially if you like, comment, and subscribe. And may your games remain horror story free. Until next time.